How do everybody? Just got a couple of bits that I want to talk about. I know there's been a lot going on lately, but I just want to focus in on two specific stories. So the first one I'm going to speak about, I'm not going to show any images of it. There's enough of it going around on the internet. It's pretty graphic, but it's the terrorist attack that's happened in Russia. I think it was on Friday. Absolutely terrible. And I've not looked into it quite in any sort of detail. I know there's a lot of conspiracies going around with it. I don't think that it is a conspiracy, simply because for Vladimir Putin to allow that to happen intentionally right on his doorstep, it just makes him look weak. So he's not that stupid, in my opinion. So I don't think there's an actual conspiracy there. I think maybe those guys could be the village idiots. They have been taken advantage of to do a terrible thing, but beyond that, I don't think there's much more to it. Those guys really did F around and they found out the hard way why you don't mess in a country like Russia, and I have absolutely zero sympathy for them after what they've done. There's a lot of people who I've seen and who've got sympathy for them and saying, "Oh, they shouldn't be getting treated like that." I couldn't care less, genuinely. Now, I'm not saying as our country we should be cutting people's ears off and making them eat them, or cutting the genitalia off. But I have absolutely no qualms that after a terrorist attack and terrorists have been subdued, that the police give them a damn good thrashing like that. Genuinely, I think they deserve it. I think that's part of the justice. When it's clear cut, when they've turned up, they've found people massacring other human beings, and they've managed to take them alive. Yeah, beat them to within an inch of a life, and then make them go to court. Like one of those guys has been wheeled in, still unconscious. I don't care. Genuinely don't care. It's his own fault. Brought it on himself, and he's only got himself to blame for that situation that he's in. Seeing the guys in the glass cages, they look like they're in absolute shock, and they deserve it. They really are contemplating their bad life choices, and so they should be, because they are never going to see the light of day again, and they are going to suffer for the rest of their lives, and so they should. Um, no 72 virgins for them men. um, yeah, so as I've said before in previous videos, I also support the death penalty, and I also support flogging for antisocial crimes. And yes, I do support the police brutalising specific individuals. Same if they catch a nonce in the act as well. If they walk in on some guy and he's got his pants down with a toddler, absolutely the police should give him a damn good kicking. There's It's cut and dried. The police should have the court should have the power to dismiss any charges against the police in a case like that, and class it as justice being served in advance of judgment. Another one I want to get on with now, and this is quite an interesting story. I think it is only a hypothetical. I don't think it will happen, but Talk TV have done a story which is the incestuous rapist Joseph Fritzl. For maybe some of the younger people who may be watching this, if you don't know who Joseph Fritzl is, I won't discuss too much into the details here, but to give you the short story, if I remember right, he was Austrian, and he basically built an actual bunker under his house, not just a basement, like an actual bunker. And he kidnapped his own daughter while she was an adult, took her down into the bunker and kept her there for, I think it was like 15 years or something. And he fathered a whole family with her. But multiple of the kids died, and he ended up cremating some of the dead ones on his barbecue. Really, really sick story. That's the sort of basic overlay of the story. I mean, obviously, there's loads of it online, plenty of stories. It was a global phenomenon of a story when it happened, and rightly so, because it was insane. But he's basically said that he wants to emigrate to the UK if he's released from prison. Now, that in itself, I don't think he should. I wouldn't want him to come here. But what got me to want to speak about this was James Cleverly, part of the government, Home Secretary, I believe he is. He's put on Twitter, "This monster is never coming to our country. Any attempt to travel to the UK will be refused, as it would be for anyone convicted of serious sex offences like this." Now, what I'm going to say now is these are not going to be my opinions at all. But what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going through some quite deep thought experiments here with this. I think it's deep. It might not be. I could just be a crayon muncher thinking I'm being clever. But the first question is, but why not? And that isn't my opinion, but with the sorts of people that they're allowing into this country on boats, or the deluge of people coming here legally, why not? Why not let him in? The only reason I can think is because he's got white skin. Salman Abedi, the recent acid attacker, he wasn't deported. How many Pakistani, Bangladeshi Muslim rape gang members have been to prison? done comparably horrendous things to young girls. Some of them even worse than what he did. I mean, Joseph Fritzl's a man. I suppose you get to a certain level of depraved where you can't get any lower. And then it's just a case of who can lie the flattest at that point, at the lowest point. Um, but like some of these guys, that branding girls, burning, murdering girls, pimping them, taking them around the country, drugging them, putting them in dog cages, peeing on them, everything, disgusting, disgusting things. Them men aren't getting deported. They're allowed to carry on living their lives in the UK. We have people coming into the UK who they know are sex offenders, who they know are rapists. Why not? We've got a member of an ex-Hamas general living in London in an ex-council house that he's bought, that the government paid, well, the council paid for his rent and helped him to get a reduced price on it. So why shouldn't Joseph Fritzl be able to come to this country? Seriously, and I don't want him to, but what's the actual argument? You can't even fall on what you would call moral arguments about him being evil, because they've been saying recently that this country is no longer a Christian country, so we're now a secular country. So what moral authority are you basing this on? Because you haven't got a higher power to judge anything against, so you can't create a moral argument. All you can come out with is a rational, logical argument. And he can logically and rationally say, in his country of Austria, and if he also goes somewhere like Germany, where people will know him, he will be persecuted because of what he's done. And rightly so. I think he should be persecuted. The man's an absolute disgusting monster. But that's the argument that he'll make. And as with a lot of refugees who are coming from war zones, just because somebody's a refugee doesn't mean they are a good person. But they are allowed to come here because they are fleeing war. Doesn't matter that they're bad people. The whole refugee and asylum thing, it doesn't matter about their background or whether they're a good or a bad person. All it matters is that they're fleeing somewhere dangerous or that they're being persecuted. Well, Joseph Fritzl can make a very reasonable argument that he's fleeing persecution. So why shouldn't he be able to come to the UK, James Cleverly? Why not? I want to know the answer to that, because we need one. Because what is to actually stop that man coming to the UK? I can't actually think of a reasonable answer for it, because any argument somebody tries to make to stop him coming here, all he has to do is turn around and say, "I'm fleeing persecution in my home country." That's all he has to say. What can they do to then stop him? Seriously, what can they actually do to stop him coming in the country? If he just jumped on a small dinghy, sails across in a dinghy with a bunch of Somalis and God knows what else, gets himself smuggled into the country, how can they send him back? Because he'll just claim asylum. He could even then turn around and claim and I don't know, become, I don't know, some crazy religion that I'm not aware of, and say I can't go back to Austria because I'll be persecuted for this religious belief now as well. Anyway, I'm gonna leave it at that. That's quite a bit. I don't know what else to make of that. Plus, if anybody else can answer that question for me, because I genuinely don't know how else to answer that. If anybody's got an answer to how we could actually stop him coming here, or what justification there is to stop him here. And by the way, I don't want him to come here. I'm going to be very clear on that. I do not want that Joseph Fritzl coming here. He's an absolute monster. But the logic of the current society that we're living in, under the laws that we have, what tools do we legally have to stop him from coming here? I don't think we can stop him coming here. I genuinely don't. What can they do? Anyway, we'll leave it at that. If that's giving you something to think about, please do like and subscribe. Definitely put comments below and somebody give me an answer to that, or your own thoughts on it, because that's absolutely wild. It's crazy. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Speak to you all later. Goodbye and have a nice evening.